You all know what I'm talking about when we say steering, and I'm going to touch on the new NAR regulations that are in place or the NAR changes that they have put in place because of the lawsuit that they are in the middle of trying to finalize. Steering is, in all basics, any practice by which you are trying to ask questions to obtain information that would include someone into a protective class so that you can advise them for or against moving into a certain area as a real estate agent. It's not okay. Clients, you may have a direct or an unconscious bias towards a certain race, creed, religion, or sexual orientation of a person and not want to sell my home to someone like that in my neighborhood. It is absolutely inappropriate. And while you're asking yourself, Mr. Client, 15 years ago, Alex, I absolutely had a relationship with the buyer of my home. I got to know who they were. I got to be introduced to their family. I got to make the decisions. And that, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is exactly why you're not allowed to have access to clients today. Buyers do not need to be put in a position to where they are consistently challenged and need to represent themselves to anything else other than being financially capable of buying your home. And your judgmental practices and the problems we have had with these things in the United States going as far back as you can think is exactly why real estate agents are critically important to making sure that we are an intermediary and you have no relationship with each other. Sure, there are always special considerations, right? Proving housing discrimination is difficult. Collecting good evidence is certainly easier. If they contact a local fair housing center for an attorney or for some guidance, most of the states are going to provide them with everything they need, even beyond the federal law scope, to be able to make sure that they can validate their claims before going too far down the track. I can give you a perfect example that comes up all the time in law classes. New York State human rights law protects against discrimination based on various factors, right? So creed, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, military age, military status, lawful source of income. So if someone gives an additional concession because they have an affinity towards the veterans, so they give a concession for a veteran and not for the person that asked for the very same concession just a week earlier, it's a violation. Real estate agents, lenders, clients, let me tell you, your unconscious biases are going to get you in trouble. And I need you to be more aware of it before these types of things happen. Give you a little bit of statistics. I promised you some numbers. Obviously, enjoying the analytics behind these type of things is always easier for me to set in stone why it's important. Expanding your knowledge is going to help you feel how discrimination affects the real estate industry and makes you get a better understanding. So by learning some of these things by the statistics, it's going to help. And these statistics I'm going to talk to you about now are from the 2024 Fair Housing Trends Report that goes back for the last 12 months. In 2023 alone, there were over 34,000 fair housing complaints received by private nonprofit fair housing organizations, the HUD, the FHAP, and the Department of Justice. Private nonprofit fair housing organizations processed over 75% of these complaints at a 6% closure rate from the previous year. It's on the rise. The problem's not getting better. Discrimination that was based on disability accounted for almost 50% of all of those complaints that were filed with those agencies. There were over 1,500 complaints of harassment reported last year, at a 66% increase over 2022 and 2021. Over 1,000 complaints based on color reported in the last year, and that was a 35% increase. Direct discrimination because of the color of their skin by either a seller, a real estate agent, or a lender. California, by the way, has the highest number of complaints, with over 9,000 being directly attributed to them. This is 25% of the total fair housing complaints that were received by private fair housing organizations. So you need to know the states that you're living in have a firm responsibility of fixing this problem. And if I was to tell you right now, and you should not move to California if you feel that you would be discriminated against. It's direct steering. It's not something I can even tell you as a real estate agent. And we're going to talk about some of those things too, because there's plenty of ways that a real estate agent can and absolutely should comply, but there's even more ways of how they can violate these acts simply by talking too much, saying things that they may have heard when they were growing up, or something that they heard on YouTube, or something that they just heard on television, doesn't make it any more appropriate for them. And they need to be intelligent on how they are asking and how they are understanding how to protect themselves and their clients and avoiding these violations. First off, you need to know how to answer some of these frequently asked and risky fair housing questions. Real estate agents have to be super cautious when answering client questions about preferred neighborhood characteristics, locations, desire, quality of living. Some of these questions relate to protected characteristics and can absolutely cause a violation to be triggered. Agents have to focus on the property itself. They've got all the resources to direct clients to on the internet. If the client has different questions that we can't answer, point them to the internet, point them to Google, point them to some AI engine so that they can ask a robot how a robot feels about it. But we cannot. Let me give you some of the easy ones and tell you how this wraps around it. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, is this a safe neighborhood? It's really common for a client to ask about the neighborhood safety. They're looking to protect themselves and or their families or their loved ones that visit from potential robbery, assault, burglary, or other crimes. When a client asks a real estate agent whether a neighborhood's safe, the agent's only response must be objective. Since individuals all view safety differently, a real estate agent should absolutely refrain from answering safety questions with an opinion or providing neighborhood crime statistics. You can't do it. It's not your job. And where you got your statistics may not be where your client looks and gets their direction. And it could directly conflict with something they found on the internet, and you don't want to be in that situation at all. It is not your job to provide crime statistics, so you should reference any other site on and do not reference any other site other than Google where they can search on their own. Alternatives: encourage your clients to find those crime information through some general resources. Look, you can always go to the local police websites. If you are concerned about sexual offenders, obviously there are the sex offender registries and all types of local government websites that can be used. Try to be mindful not to recommend a specific site, even if you know what the local police department website is. Just tell them police website. Any of those websites can also be misleading or contribute to steering, and I don't want any of my agents, or any other agent out there for that matter, to put under that level of scrutiny. They can also suggest that they visit the area with a friend outside of a showing today. Do a drive-through. Check it out for yourself. Stand outside of your car. If you personally have a secure feeling about where you are standing outside of your vehicle, then you should feel comfortable about buying a home in that community. But it is your decision, and the agent cannot steer you in any one direction or another. Clients can speak to those people living in the area. If there's a local park in the community, you should not be afraid to stop and ask a question to the masses in the dog park of, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in this community. Anybody care to tell me what they think about the local neighborhood? Clients can speak to those people. Real estate agents cannot. But it will help your clients get a better feel for the neighborhood. Other questions I get: are there churches nearby? Clients might ask you directly about churches, mosques, synagogues. They want a close place if they are a person of worship. However, clients asking those questions might be also avoiding trying to live in a place where certain religions practice too. So unfortunately, we have to stay away from this question as well. There are some obvious alternatives. You can direct the clients to conduct just a quick online or a Google search for religious institutions. It's very simple to pull up your phone while you're in that community and go churches near me, and it will give you a list of every church within a easy walking radius. Google Maps is a perfect resource for this type of information, and they can look it up. Agents, listen up. They can look it up. The same technology they use to find you, they can find out this information without putting you at risk. Drive around the neighborhood, Mr. or Mrs. Client. Do so on your own so that you can have your own personal opinions in the safety of your own car without disrupting the surroundings or the interests of others. You can make your own private notes. They are for you. I always want my clients to feel that they made a great choice in not only the home, but in the neighborhood and in the community they have moved into. But it is their opinion and their opinion alone that can help them with their decision. Next question. Are there good schools in the community? Real estate agents get this one all the time. A neighborhood real estate agent will get asked about the quality of a school district in certain areas. In the MLS itself, it asks us to pin the best elementary, middle, and high schools that are inside the district of the home we're selling. Question seems innocent enough. Coming from a parent especially, or a potential future parent, but still, this fair housing violation is a perfect example. It can lead you down that slippery slope of potentially violating the Fair Housing Act. Real estate agent must be careful in their response because it can constitute steering clients from a particular school or school district, therefore specific locations, and that is by definition steering. Alternatives. Tell your client to, again, do the research. It's publicly accessible information for public and private schools in the area. Google will help you meet your questions needs. Flip it and ask your client about their preferred school district. Is there a school district or a community with certain schools you would like me to create my scope of search to help you find a home only within that? You, client, can certainly draw lines like that, but you can't go as far as to say, I will not live within certain miles or radius of this type of church. You can't do that. Absolutely not allowable. Performing a housing search for a client based on desired location criteria for a school district does not constitute a violation of fair housing law. If you take it too far and if you build a conversation around it, then yes, you're pushing the limits.